Hey everyone, William Bryce here coming at you with another championship belt review video. Now this time I'm actually bringing you guys another one that I've been wanting to do for a while, one of the premier championship belts. And I tell you, in the process of prepping for this video, I actually learned a lot about the premier championship belts that I didn't know. Now, I had seen them here and there because if you're not aware, the Premier Championship belt videos have a World Championship, a World Championship version 2, a Tag Team Championship, and a US Championship. But up until now, I didn't really know where these belts came from. I had seen them here and there, but I hadn't really known any more details about them other than what they looked like visually. But I actually got my hands on one thanks to my good friend Deshaun, and I'm here to review this video with you guys today. Now, one thing I wanted to start off by pointing out is this is the World Heavyweight Championship version 2. So there is a version 1 of the championship belt. This one, of course, is the version 2, which kind of has that shape of the WWE Championship modern version. Now, part of the reason that I think that these Premier Championship belts are so cool is because they don't have any kind of brand on them. They don't say WCW, they don't say WWE, they don't say AEW. They are a quote-unquote blank championship that you can have that's unbranded, and it makes it feel a little bit more like your championship. And I imagine for this reason, that's why several independent professional wrestling companies actually use these championship belts, because you don't have to have one custom designed, but it's still not branded with another company's emblems, so you can use it for your company. And don't get me wrong, I'm not downplaying that at all. If anything, I actually think it's a fantastic idea because a lot of independent wrestling companies are running on pretty tight budgets as it is. So, also, doing the research for these videos, I also discovered that there are, in fact, bootleg versions of these. Now, as I say that out loud, it seems obvious because there's bootleg versions of everything. But I did a little bit of research, and I'm also going to talk about how you can tell the difference between the bootleg and the regulars. And we'll talk about that when we go into the close-up a little bit more. But of course, as I do in every single one of my videos, I also want to talk about the materials, the feel, and of course, the way that it sits. So these championship belts, from what I have found, are made with actual leather, and they are 4mm thick zinc-plated plates. So not too dissimilar to what you see from like a WWE shop or just a lot of championship belts that you'll find online. Now, one thing that I actually want to take a moment to talk about is where you get these belts from, because that was one of the things that I also had to learn. I had seen them on eBay, but I didn't really see them anywhere else. So these belts actually, let me rephrase that, the actual belts, not the bootlegs, do have a certificate stamp on the back. And that certificate stamp actually leads you to 2 websites, but both websites will actually lead you back to AJ's Belts. Now, if you're a belt collector, you're probably familiar with that website already, but if not, take a moment after this video to check them out. It's ajsbelts.com. And on their website, they actually list that they are the exclusive dealer of Premier Championship belts. And from what I've been finding online, other than buying it from a third party, that is indeed correct. And the reason I bring that up is because you will actually want to take that into consideration when you're looking at one of these Premier Championship belts, if you want to make sure that you're getting the legit one versus a bootleg. Now, of course, with it being real leather, as you guys have seen before, I always like to do the shoulder test. It sits quite nicely, and I want to point out that this is the non-weighted side of the championship belt strap. So the weighted side is down, the unweighted side is going over my shoulder, and it still hugs very nicely. I'm very happy to say that. And of course, as I call it, the flex test, you hold up the championship here, and it's nice and tight to my fingers. And it feels really nice. You can hold it up, do the champion's pose on the turnbuckle, put it right back over your shoulder, and it sits really nicely. So it's comfortable, and I hate to say it, but it's also going to be better quality than some of the replicas you get from WWE.com. If you watch some of my other videos, you know that on WWEshop.com, those NXT Championship belts especially are made with faux leather. Not even made with polyurethane like a lot of the main roster championship belts are. And the faux leather really is not flexible. I actually would go as far to say that if I ever bought another faux leather championship belt, I would buy it with the intention of replacing that strap, but replacing that strap is going to cost you a few $100s, of course. So with these championship belts, right off the bat, you're getting a pretty good quality strap for $300. And yes, that is $300 as of the date of recording on ajsbelts.com. Now, when you're looking at bootlegs of these championship belts that I found on eBay, it's another one of those things where you get what you pay for, and what you pay determines what you get. I saw one that was from Pakistan for about $175. And at first, I didn't even realize it was a bootleg until I started looking a little bit closer and comparing it to this one. Now, one thing that I'm starting to become a bigger and bigger proponent of is if you want to know if it's a bootleg, the first thing to do is look for that certificate stamp on the back. If it doesn't have the certificate stamp on the back, it's not the legit championship. It's the same with the WWE belts, and it's the same with these Premier Championship belts. Another thing that I noticed is the plates have a slight difference in their shape, and I even noticed that one of the side plates had a whole different country on it. On the right side plate, we have North America and South America, and on the left side plate, we have Europe, Africa, and Asia. And on the one that I saw on the other side plate, it looked to be the same side plate on both sides. Now, another big difference is the tooling on the leather, and in some places, even the shape of the leather. But once again, I'll talk about that a little bit more with the close-up. Speaking of that close-up, let's transition to that part of the video, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what we found afterwards. So here we are, guys, with a little bit of a closer look at the Premier World Heavyweight Championship belt. So as you guys can see from the get-go, it is a very nice belt, or at least I hope you guys would agree with that. And as we take a little bit closer look, I want to point out some of the details, maybe even details that you guys didn't notice because I didn't notice them until I had the belt physically in front of me. Now, starting off with the left side of the belt, as we move into that first side plate, you see there are a couple wrestlers in there, but the way that they're designed in the engraving, you really don't notice it until you really notice it. And I think that that's actually beautiful because it's one of those things where I think it's done in such a subtle way that I think the subtlety is really an advantage rather than a disadvantage. As we move on to the second side plate, we have another wrestler holding the globe above his head with Europe, Asia, and Africa, as I was mentioning a little bit before. And as we move to the main plate, here we go. We actually have an eagle design. Here's the eagle head. And with his beak, his body, and then his wings off to the side, it's a little hard to make out, but there is the eagle head right there. And I just think that's really cool because growing up with the Attitude Era, with the Winged Eagle Championship and the Eagle on the Attitude Era belt, it's just really cool to see the eagle symbolism on this championship belt as well. Now, as we move over to the other side plate, we have another wrestler holding up the globe with North America and South America, and then a couple wrestlers on this last side plate too, with the metal side plate all the way at the end. Now, one of the things that I talked about as we zoom out here a little bit was how to tell the difference between the actual championship belt or a bootleg. So one thing that I noticed with the bootlegs is that there's not as much attention to detail as far as the cut is concerned on the outside trimming of this leather strap. And if you look at the championship belt championship belt listings on websites such as eBay, you'll notice that there is just a lot more space in between the plate and the edge of the leather. Something else that I noticed on the bootlegs is with these side plates, they're all shaped really uniformly, but when you look at those bootleg ones, they're definitely not shaped as uniformly. They have the same basic shape, but even the edging on these side plates looks not as detailed, and that's a big deal. Now, there was one listing that I saw that over on the sides of the straps, it actually had additional etching, which I was a little surprised. Usually with the bootlegs, you see less detail, not more, but it still was enough to tell me that this wasn't an actual Premier Championship belt. Now, we're going to take a look at the other side really quick. Because as I mentioned before, the number one thing you're going to want to be looking for to see if it's a real belt is that stamp. It even says Premier Replica Belts Incorporated. Now, there is no direct website for Premier Replica Belts. Even on the bottom of the patch, it says www.ajsbelts.com or www.championshiptitles.com. And that second website will actually redirect you back to AJ's Belts website. So there's two websites there, but it's really for the same company. And side note, if you type in championship title without the S on the end, it takes you to a whole different company. So if you do, for some reason, decide to type in championshiptitles.com, make sure you get that S on the end so you don't look at your screen like I did and say, what the heck is this? Now, as always, when we're looking at these, you can see the screws. They are open. So in theory, you could take the plates off. But to my knowledge, unless you're getting a send-out strap, which I'll admit, I did not look to see if there's any send-out straps for the Premier Version 2 Championship belt, you really shouldn't have to do anything with the screws other than if you have to fix something. So with that being said, we're going to head into the last part of this video. And thank you guys once again for watching. We'll take it right back over. So as you guys saw from the close-up, there really is a lot of cool details that go into this Premier Heavyweight Championship version 2. One thing I didn't even notice until I had my physical hands on one of these is that eagle in the main plate. And of course, me being of the wrestling generation that I am, I love the eagle symbolism in my championship belts. So that is just really cool. Once again, as you guys saw, a little bit more detail about how to tell if you have the real one versus if you're potentially buying a fake one. And don't get me wrong, if you're looking for a cheap belt, that's fine. But I can tell you from me looking at this championship belt and looking at the bootlegs, I would rather pay an extra 100, extra 125 and get the one that's a little bit better quality because it's going to last longer, it's going to look better. And if it looks better in pictures, I have a feeling that it's going to look a lot better in person. There's just no doubt about it. And here's the thing I would go as far to say, even if you don't have a championship company, let's say that you're a fan of WWE, New Japan, AEW, Ring of Honor, MLW, TNA, and you just want to have a championship that you feel cool having on your shoulder anytime you're watching any of those shows, it's another reason to go with the Premier Championship belts. I really do think that they're a great belt. I'm really grateful to my friend Deshaun for letting me borrow this. Quite honestly, I don't want to give it back, but I have a feeling I'm going to have to give it back. So that being said, it's just a really cool belt. I really hope you guys like this video, by the way. Speaking of, if you did like this video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and share the video as well. And if you can, follow me on social media at Duality, William Bryce, and William Bryce Wrestling. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, even though I'm not on there too much, and of course, right here at home on YouTube. Make sure to check out those other videos. Help me out with that algorithm, and I really can't wait to bring you guys another video.